Welcome to Spill the Tea with Josephine. Today we're talking to Lacey Flax, the Hexes and Homicide mystery series author. Well, welcome to Spill the Tea, and today we're talking to Lacey Flax, who is the author of the Hexes and Homicide series. So welcome, Lacey, and thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me, Josephine. Really happy to be here.
So you are a cozy mystery author, and I was wondering what attracted you to the cozy mystery writing realm?
So I like to read all different genres, but there's something specific about a cozy that even though someone's gonna die, nothing too bad is gonna happen. Um, sometimes when I'm reading a book, I will get to a scene and I'm just not ready for it. Like for example, last year I was listening to Lessons in Chemistry. It was a very popular book. It's very good.
Mhm.
Um, on audiobook while I'm walking my dog through the neighborhood, and like suddenly it's like chapter like maybe 4 or 5. There was just a very violent moment that I was not expecting based on the blurb, and I was like, it's a nice day. I'm walking my dog through the neighborhood. I was just not really prepared for it. And when you read a cozy, that doesn't happen. Usually the person who dies is, they're a bad person, or you don't really know them yet because they die early in the book. So, aside from the fact that there's a murder, there's not usually a lot of violence, and it's it's cozy. It's like a warm hug, or you can cuddle up with it with like a cup of tea and, maybe a brownie and a book, and it's just, smooth sailing.
That's awesome. So, you have two books out at the moment. Are they just on Amazon? Are they wide?
So I've got two books out right now. So my first book, this one, was Hexes and Homicide Book One, The Witch Hunter. And this was my second book, which just came out in March, was second in the series, Hexes and Homicide, Murder on Opening Night. They are both in Kindle Unlimited, so they're exclusive to Amazon at the moment.
And what made you decide to write about cozy mysteries set in the 1920s, which I think is fabulous and kind of a unique twist on it?
So I am a person who loves a good historical time period, any historical time period, and I am there. I have watched Downton Abbey probably 50 times because I
It's
love
my
it. And
favorite.
well, okay, when we stop recording, I'll have to ask you what your favorite episode is and we'll go a little off track. um, but I'm the same with books. I like a lot of the books from like Reese Bowen or CJ Archer that are set like early 1900s. I got really into the Gilded Age when it came out on HBO like 2 or 3 years ago. And so I really wanted to have a historical setting. I love historical settings, and I just thought the 1920s was sort of like fun and flirty, and it really fits well with, I like the idea that I feel like is sort of the time period when women were like taking charge, and I like a strong heroine. I like the idea that my female main character, Sylvia Stewart, is just going out there solving crimes and pursuing her dreams, and I feel like the 1920s is a good setting for that. It's very lighthearted and fun. I felt like it was good for a cozy.
Awesome. So why don't you tell us more about your main character?
Okay, so my series follows a young witch. Her name is Sylvia Stewart. She's in the first book, we start off the novel. She's really she's just pursuing her dreams on Broadway. She's working in a speakeasy, and then suddenly the witches around her, people that she knows, start being murdered. And she really feels compelled to take action when one of her friends is targeted. And she also later on in the book you find out she has some personal history, which is another reason that pushes her into action. um I don't want to give too much away. It's always hard to
We
summarize
don't
that
want
to be
spoiler alerts, but we do
too
want to know
much
more.
away. Yeah, no spoilers. So yeah, so she's a young woman. She lives with her aunts. They run kind of a little like witch general store. They're sort of like an odd couple. So her two aunts that she lives with, they're a couple. And one is like very serious and bookish and academic, and the other one is like very caring and loving and kind of like, she bakes magic infused cakes that are like like having a hug and a cake, which kind of actually reminds me of my mom because my mom always baked a lot when I was a child. So I'm like, what's that feeling that you get when you eat a really good piece of cake?
Mhm.
It's like a hug in your mouth. Um, so yeah, so Sylvia lives with her two aunts. She works in the shop, and then people that she knows start being killed. So she dives in and starts solving mysteries.
Okay. And can you also tell us a little bit? I admit I read the blurbs on Amazon. This interesting detective that it is in your stories.
Yeah. Okay. So my mailman character, is it's a very much a slow burn. There's not a lot happening there in book one. There's maybe a few hints, but he's Sylvia's love interest. He's also the sort of like he's the grumpy to her sunshine. So she's very cheerful and outgoing, and he's sort of like stoic and he's not that cranky, but he definitely isn't thrilled to be working with her. He doesn't want her to be involved and, would be very happy if she would just go home. But he also kind of needs her because he doesn't know about magic. He's
Hmm.
not really sure what witches are capable of. So there's a little bit of a push pull there. There's a little bit of tension in their relationship. Um, there's some really good developments in their relationship in book two. It's still a slow burn. So if you're looking for a happily ever after in like one book, this is not for you. But if you like, kind of a slow build, this will be the relationship that you'll want to follow.
And are you planning a third book, obviously?
I am planning a third book. I have it drafted. I'm hoping to have it out later this year, maybe in the summer. So the third book is following. So, okay, so book one, we've got Sylvia's friends are being killed. Book two, she's pursuing her dreams on Broadway, and unexpected things happen that she has to investigate. Book three dives into there's a character that's introduced as their neighbor who lives upstairs in the first book. Her name is Flossie.
Hmm.
I love the nickname Flossie for Florence, by the way, which is why I named her that because I just find that to be a really cute nickname. That name is due for a comeback if anybody's having a baby. um, anyway, so book three follows a little bit of Flossie's family and kind of dives into her backstory a little bit. And for various reasons, she needs help from Sylvia to solve the mystery.
Oh, that's pretty cool. So, do you have a particular like area of your home or a particular like routine when you're writing?
Usually I am writing with constant interruption from cats, if I'm being honest. Um, I I am someone like I feel like when the mood
Hmm.
when the mood does not strike, it's very difficult to write. And I
It
might try
is.
to write for 2 hours and write 100 words. If it's flowing, I actually have another series that I'm working on, a contemporary series set in North Carolina's Outer Banks, which might come out in the fall. We'll see how it goes. The first book. Um, like when I first got the idea for that series and started writing, I wrote 6,000 words in like 2 days, and I was staying up till like 1 o'clock in the morning, just like typing, typing, typing because it was just I was in the zone.
It's pouring
So
out.
yeah, exactly. Sometimes it's really a struggle, and you have to be like, okay, I'm gonna write for 20 minutes, and we're gonna see what happens, and it's a good 20 minutes or it's not, but then the 20 minutes is over. So I don't really have like a set routine. I don't really have a set place in my house. I try to capitalize when I'm in the moment, and that I might be downstairs. I might have Downton Abbey on. I might have a cat. I have one cat that's very persistent about taking over my laptop space. So he really wants to be on my lap. So I might be pushing a cat away. Or I might be like, okay, this is not the moment, and just, pet the cat for a while.
So do
Yeah.
you have any favorite authors that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I read a wide range of genres. So two of my favorite cozy authors are Reese Bowen. She's been writing for a really long time. I really like her Molly Murphy series and also this is such a dorky title. I always feel weird when I suggest this book, but it's called Her Royal Spyness. And fits the book really well because her protagonist is like a distant relative of the queen. I think it's Queen Elizabeth. I think it's a young Queen Elizabeth II, but it might be Queen Elizabeth I. It's been a while since the Queen was in the book because it's on like book I think I read book 17 recently, so it's been a really long running series. Um, so she tends to write just like straight historical mysteries. I mean, they're pretty cozy, but there's no paranormal element. And then I also really like CJ Archer. She had a series. The first, the book is called, the series is called Glass and Steel. The first book is called The
Mhm.
Watchmaker's Daughter. Really good. I like binged the heck out of it. Like I read that first book and I seriously read all like 9 books in like, I don't know, 2 months or something like that. It was crazy. So I really, really like a lot of her series. I read some of her other companion series as well. Non-cozies, I really like V.E. Schwab a lot of times. She writes more like fantasy. She wrote The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and The Darker Shade of Magic. Those were both really good. And of course, I am from the Harry Potter generation. So that
Yeah.
to me is like there's something like nostalgia childhood about that. So I can throw on, the audiobook or, pick up the book and I can pick up any of the books and probably even in the middle and I still know what's going on. Um, so yeah, I think that's probably just like my millennial generation showing.
And what motivated you to become a writer, but especially a cozy writer?
It's funny because I feel like I'm not one of those people that like always wrote since childhood. I feel
Hmm.
like I was one of those people that was always like, "Oh, I'll write a book someday." And last year, for last year I separated from my husband and found myself with a lot of extra time on my hands. So it was like, okay, what am I going to do to fill this time? And I had a bunch of like, half finished books that I had like laying around in my Google Drive. You start writing, you know how it is, Josephine. You start writing something because you have an idea, and then you get to the middle and you're like, I don't know where this is going. And then you shelve it and you're like, thinking you'll come back to it. And then that's like 4 years later and you're like, what was this about? Um, so I had a bunch of those
A
and
lot of times I come back and then I reread it. I'm like, what did I write? I can't even remember it all.
wrote this. And then it was like a note from me. And I was like, oh, it was me. This get it, this get into my Google Drive. Where's this from? So I tried to pick up one of my like old projects and it just wasn't quite there. And then, I started a new one and I started another new one. And I think the third or fourth go around last year was Hexes and Homicide book 1. So, eventually I found something and I was like, okay, this I can do. Um, I think I was reading a lot of cozies at the time. So I was probably in that kind of like cozy mystery, like fantasy mindset.
Hmm.
I've always liked cozies. I would like to write fantasy one day as well. And a couple of the like false starts that I have that maybe I'll get back to are fantasy books, actually. So I can't stay to one genre.
I can't either, so I don't blame you. I don't know what it is, but I like to dabble in a few other ones. So,
Yeah, I do feel I feel a bit of a responsibility to like the people who read the first book also to like work on the second book. So I've been
yeah,
really trying to like rein me in and keep me on like the same series, because nobody wants to be waiting 10 years for a book.
very true.
So
Very true. So, what's your favorite thing about being an author?
um
I know, hard question.
there's something like really satisfying, like when your book like shows up, like your physical book, or because I just published book 2, I've had people who like read book 1 and told me they loved it, and then they like read like they've already, well, some of them are ARC readers, so that's why they've already read book 2. Um, but they like read book 2 right away, and it just like, and I'm like, and it's not my mom. Actually, my mom's like midway through book 1 and asked me who the killer is. And I was like, tell you. Anyway, um, but like, it's like someone that I don't even know tells me that they enjoy it. Like that's just
Mhm.
like it's amazing. I'm like, this came from my brain and somebody else actually found it enjoyable. I think it's really special.
That's awesome. Is there anything else that you'd like to tell us about yourself or your books?
I can tell you a little bit more about like what I've got coming up. So I
Sure.
talked a little bit about Hexes and Homicide book 3. That's
Hmm.
my planned next release. I've got the draft. It still needs a little bit of work. So probably at least a few months away. And then this fall, I'm also hoping to do a contemporary, even though I love a historical time setting. I'm hoping to do a contemporary series that'll be my first book in that series. Don't know what I'm going to call it yet, but it's going to be set in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. And
So is that like a contemporary romance or
it's a contemporary cozy. So
contemporary
it'll
cozy?
be a
Okay.
cozy mystery. Yeah. It's also a mystery series. It's also paranormal instead
Mhm.
of a witch FMC. She's gonna be something happens. There are things that happen, and she can suddenly like see ghosts. So it's gonna be more along the lines of a ghost cozy.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that one I'm really excited about as well. And then, of course I'll have to write Hexes and Homicide book 4. That'll come up. I have a few ideas for that, but that'll probably be 2025 by the time I got some other books in the meantime coming.
All right. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it, taking the time to talk to us. And we will have the links to your book and to your, I believe it's your Instagram that I have,
Hmm,
and any other links that you give me. So if anybody's interested, they can just click on the links below and go find out more about Hexes and Homicide.
great. Thank you so much for having me, Josephine.